Good morning and welcome again to the India Today Conclave East. Is the ruling government of the day at the center and in different state capitals losing the ability to forge a consensus by using the brute electoral majority to push through different forms of legislation which ultimately leads to protests out on the street, like we saw recently during the Agnipath protests, before that during the farm agitation, even before that during the CAA, Citizenship Amendment Act protests, and even before that during the land acquisition period. And is this dangerous for democracy? Are we losing the art of building a political consensus? To talk about this deeply vexed issue, we're joined at the India Today Conclave East, starting from my immediate left by Pradyut Bordoloi. He's been a former cabinet minister in Assam, Congress member of parliament in the Lok Sabha. Flanking him, we've got Abdul Khalik, member of parliament from Barpeta in Assam. Next to him, we've got Sukhendu Sekhar Ray, Trinamool Rajya Sabha member of parliament. And last but not least, representing the ruling government, we have a former IAS officer, now the member of parliament from Bhubaneswar in Orissa, Parajita Sarangi. So welcome to all of you. And I want to start by asking Ms. Sarangi about the protests that we are seeing on the street. If you look, the data suggests that fewer bills are being sent to standing committees for consultation. The whole process of trying to formulate a consensus now seems to consume time, it seems burdensome, and therefore the government says we have the majority and therefore we can push bills through without having to go through this time-consuming process, which is what leads to the kind of protests that we've seen recently. How do you respond to this?
A very good morning. At the outset, I must say that it's my privilege, my pleasure to be part of this conclave of India Today. I'm thankful that all the esteemed panelists, whom I respect very much, are here. Now, as far as building consensus is concerned in the age of disruptions, I would like to say very emphatically, but with tremendous humility, that from 26th May 2014, the day Prime Minister Modi has taken over till date, these 8 years should not be termed as the age of disruptions. So the fact remains that here is a government which is envisioning India at 100. We are into Amrit Kal, and for that matter, we have to think ahead. And when we think ahead of our time, we know there would be resistance, there would be opposition. And in these 8 years, to every action, rather positive action of Prime Minister Modi, there is an equal and opposite negative reaction from the opposition. Now, I'm a member of the Lok Sabha. I sit there during the parliament session. I'm also part of the standing committees, and I must mention with all humility that I'm part of the 3 joint parliamentary committees. Now here, 11 bills have been sent in the 17th Lok Sabha to the various standing committees, major bills, important bills. And there are 3 joint parliamentary committees. I would definitely like to mention them, if Rahul, you can permit, if there is time. Number 1, of course, is the Personal Data Protection Bill. I'm a member of that. And I must say, with all conviction at my command, that all the members belong to different political parties, and this particular committee was constituted in 2019, and 78 times this committee had met. Every stakeholder's view was taken, whether it be government servants, academicians, or data security experts, and then the bill was given a shape and sent to the parliament, number 1. Number 2, I'm also a member of the Biological Diversity Amendment Bill, and you must see what kind of rigor with which this particular committee is working, analyzing clause by clause. And third, of course, where I'm not a member, but I'm aware of that, is the Prohibition of Child Marriage Amendment Bill 2021. Here also, the committee members belonging to all political parties decided to seek the opinion of the public, and the work is on. What I'm trying to say is, We are trying to build consensus. 2 lines I would definitely like to put forth, which Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji has said. We are very much keen to build consensus. And my dear friends, there is no choice. The Constitution of India speaks of consensus. There are 2 expressions. We, the people of India, the preamble. The power vests with the people of India. That's what it is. We, the people. And number 2, Article 368. Power to amend the Constitution. It can be done only if there is ratification by half of the states and it mandates special majority.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, Sukhendu Sekhar Ray, the argument that the BJP makes is, from the Prime Minister down, the party wants to build consensus. The opposition wants to disrupt. Because they don't have the numbers, they try and take disruptions to the floor, to the well of the house or to the street. A lot of the protests that we are seeing are, according to the government, fueled by the opposition because they simply cannot compete electorally with the might of the BJP.
See, it's not a question.
No, it is to me. Good morning, everybody. The question that you have put to me, yes, it is the duty of the opposition to reflect the dissension or disenchantment among the people on certain issues concerning them. As a responsible opposition party, we do it very often. But when the disruptionists have come to power, and now they say that disruption is very bad, we take it with a pinch of salt. You know that there were occasions when an entire session was washed out on the issue of 2G or any other issue. And at that point of time, those who were the leader of the oppositions in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they were on record saying that disruption is a part of democracy and sometimes it is beneficial for the democratic system. So we are not on that blaming anyone. But it depends upon the mindset of the people at the helm of the affairs, how to arrive at a consensus. It is not a fact that we never arrived at any consensus. There was a time when on the issue of Lokpal, or for that matter GST, different political parties at the request of the then ruling party or present ruling party, consensus was arrived at. So there are both the pictures. But when disruptions become mounting on the proceedings of the parliament, naturally it is discussed at length in the press. But what is the root cause for disruption? We'll have to go to the root cause.
What do you think is the root cause?
According to me, there are 3-4 elements or the root causes for the disruption by the opposition. First of all, the time constraint. Opposition do not get much time to ventilate the grievances of the people. There was a time, in the 1950s, where this parliament had sessions for 140 days, 50 days, 60 days. Now it has been reduced to half. So naturally there is a time constraint. Why can't we follow the British model or the Canadian model, where the parliament runs throughout the year with sessions for 150 days, 60 days and more than that. But and 20 days out of that 150 days or 160 days, in UK particularly, 20 days are earmarked for the opposition. They decide what will be the business in the House, what would be the private members' bill to be discussed, etc. So opposition gets a space. So the more you will give space to the opposition, I am not telling that a ruling party doesn't. Democracy is based on majority rule, no doubt about it. But at the same time, the role of the opposition is no less important. So time constraint is one factor.
Okay.
The other things is that most of the bills are not nowadays referred to the parliamentary committees. When this system was introduced in the 1990s, when the parliamentary committees were set up for the first time, Those days, 70% or 75% of the bills used to be referred to the standing committees or other committees. Now, this has been almost done away with. The parliamentary committees have almost become redundant because most of the bills are not referred to them. I can name so many bills, but you see, due to paucity of time, this is the second shortcoming. The third shortcoming is that there is no attempt on the part of the ruling party or the ruling dispensation to have dialogue with the opposition, various opposition parties.
Look, let me put that question back to Aparajita.
I'm giving one example. Yes. When Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji was Prime Minister, there was always an attempt on the part of his government to have a discussion with the opposition to arrive at consensus. We have seen a troubleshooter like Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. We have seen Mr. Arun Jaitley as leader of the Rajya Sabha and Madam Sushma Swaraj as leader of Lok Sabha. Both of them used to, when they were in power, in ministry, they used to speak to different political parties. But nowadays, it is almost absent.
Okay, so let Aparajita respond to this. The paucity of time, the lack of a desire to build consensus. Mamata Banerjee was here at the same stage yesterday. She said, if the BJP had told us who their presidential candidate was, maybe we could have found consensus around a tribal Adivasi woman from the east.
Yes.
But you never did it. They're not trying to build a consensus because the BJP of Shah and Modi is different from the BJP of Vajpayee, Jaitley and Sushma.
Yes, Mamata Banerjee got a call from Mr. Rajnath Singh that let us have a consensus. Then Mamata ji asked, who is your candidate? Or what is your plan of action? He did not say anything in details.
Aparajita.
He was asking her suggestion.
See, I would say that let's not make general statements. Let's support our arguments with facts and figures. As far as the productivity rate is concerned, from 14th Lok Sabha to the 17th Lok Sabha where I am in and my colleagues are there, let me tell you that the productivity rate has been 86%, 85%, 95% and now 106% respectively, number one. Number two, I think all of us have read the interview of Honorable Speaker Om Birla, which had come out in one of the major newspapers a couple of days back. He said, the 17th Lok Sabha has performed extremely well and the number of participants in various debates, and when I say number of participants, I mean participants belonging to various political parties, have been given time and have been given chance to speak much more than what it was in the 16th Lok Sabha or before that. And you know, discussions have gone into the night. We have held discussions on various bills which have gone into the night. And let me tell you that the Honorable Speaker and others have tried very hard to talk to our members from the opposition, from outside the parliament also, outside the Lok Sabha also. I remember when the farm laws were being discussed, the farm bills were being discussed, there was a time when everybody was invited for discussion. Everybody came, all the opposition parties came,
I have the
but
data
Rahul
from
Gandhi did not come.
Budget session of 2022, the productivity of the Rajya Sabha was 90%, Lok Sabha 114%. Parajita cites this data to say opposition is being given an opportunity to speak. People like Rahul Gandhi don't come because they prefer agitational politics on the street rather than debating and discussing on the floor of the House.
What about budget session of 2021? Out of 15 bills passed in Lok Sabha, 11 bills were discussed for 10 minutes each. And it was passed. And in Rajya Sabha, within half an hour, 10 bills were passed. So
hey, Rahul, I just wanted to point out, you also spoke about statistics. When you talk about budget session last time, do you know 73% of the budget provisions were passed without any discussion? And 7 bills were introduced in the budget session. 5 bills were passed without any discussion. And coming to statistics, you have mentioned, see, there are regions why disruptions have taken place of late. Because when you don't have sittings of the parliament for 3 decades, from 50s, 60s and 70s, the average days of sitting of the parliament was 121 days. But it has been gradually declining. Now, in the current Lok Sabha, the average 70 days in a year, the sitting takes place. So the opposition do not get opportunities to ventilate. And not only that, I want to give you another example. You said about parliamentary committees. Parliamentary committees are obviously enshrined in the constitution. So, in UPA 2 regime, this is statistics. I just want to tell you this. 71% bills which were introduced during the UPA 2 regime, 71% bills were referred to select committees and standing committees for discussion. That came down to the 16th Lok Sabha, it came down to 27%. And now in the current Lok Sabha term is not over. Barely 11% bills are referred to the standing committees. These are facts. So you can see that the opportunities, the time for the opposition, that is not there. So the point is very clear. The more you sweat in the parliament, the less you bleed on the streets. Because you have to give time. All our MPs are representatives of the people. So you have to give time. We have to articulate. We have to ventilate. If that opportunities are not given, there are bound to be disruption. There are bound to be, agitations everywhere. So all these things have to be addressed. Consensus has to be built. I want to give you another example because we were talking about consensus also. I just want to give you one example. The Chinese aggression, 1962, when the national emergency was promulgated, there was a young opposition MP who went to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. That young opposition MP was none than Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji. He was barely 36 years. He went and met Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, saying that it's a national emergency, the Chinese have started attacking India, the parliament session must be convened, special session. Nehru ji agreed immediately and special session was convened. And that time, there was another independent MP, Dr. L. Singhvi. He went to the Prime Minister saying that, this is all in the books. He went to the Parliament, to the Prime Minister saying that this session should not be open. There should be secret session so that, it should be confined on the national interest. Jawaharlal Nehru ji didn't agree. That special session took place and 165 MPs of various hues of all parties, they took to the floor. It was an open thing. And a lot of attack on Jawaharlal Nehru ji. Attack, vitriolic attack. But it was, Jawaharlal Nehru ji was there. See, this was the consensus. You have to respect the opposition. You have to allow. And B.R. Ambedkar ji said in the Constituent Assembly, when Constitution was walked out, saying that Parliament should belong to the opposition. If you don't give opportunities, if you try to skirt the issues, don't allow questions. I am telling you with lot of conviction. For last 2 years, we know that our neighborly state is Arunachal Pradesh. Chinese incursions have taken place. Forget about Congress. I belong to the Congress. My friend, another BJP MP from Arunachal Pradesh, he himself just raised it. And I have been filing at least 10 to 12 questions in last 2 years. All my questions on Chinese incursions have been disallowed. Why are we disallowed?
Okay, that's interesting. The comparison between Pandit Nehru wanting a session on the incursion and attack from China, and you're saying your mentions are being disallowed, and this data is very significant. I was looking at some PRS data. In the UPA first term, 59% of the bills were sent to a standing committee or a select committee. UPA second term, 71%. During the first term of the Modi government, it came down to 24%. That is now down to 12%. So you cited what's happening with the privacy bill, but only 12% of the overall laws are now being sent to some committee. The data suggests it's come down from 71 to 12%.
See, don't you think that we have to achieve a lot and we have less time in hand? Now, most emphatically, I would like to mention here that Prime Minister Modi's government acknowledges the fact that a majority runs the government, but the country is run through consensus. We hugely believe in building consensus, and we have been trying very hard for that. But I must say with all conviction at my command that we are not here just to run the government. We want to take the nation forward, and taking the nation forward is collective responsibility. To run the parliament, to run Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, not to have disruptions, not to create problems unnecessarily, shouting with no facts and figures. I think the opposition must look within themselves. And it is a collective responsibility, I understand.
अब्दुल खलीक साहब बताइए, अपराजिता जी बोलती हैं कि कलेक्टिव रिस्पांसिबिलिटी है, सबको मिल के करना है. ऑपोजिशन सिर्फ शोर करना चाहता है, काम नहीं करना चाहता. जब बहस होती है कई बार तो ऑपोजिशन के लोग पार्लियामेंट में नहीं होते, बीजेपी ने विप दिया होता है, बीजेपी वाले बैठे होते, कांग्रेस का कोई नहीं होता.
पहला बात तो सुखेंदु शेखर जी जरा हिंट दिया. अरुण जेटली जी ने, दूसरे किसी को मैं नहीं कोट कर रहा हूं, अरुण जेटली जी ने कहा था dissent, debate and disruption are part of democracy. तो ये dissent, debate और जब disruption का जरूरत होता है तब तो करना पड़ेगा. लेकिन disruption कब होते हैं? हाँ, 2-4 अपराजिता जी ने डाटा दिया, कुछ बिल सिलेक्ट कमेटी में, स्टैंडिंग कमेटी में भेजा है. लेकिन जो इंपॉर्टेंट बिल है, जैसे फार्म लॉ, विपक्ष इतना दावा किया इसको कमेटी में भेजना चाहिए, नहीं भेजा. इन लोगों का मेजॉरिटी है, संख्या है, संख्या का अहंकार में बिल पास कर दिया, बाद में वापस कर लिया. जो हम लोग जो बोला था, विपक्ष ने जो बोला था, जो आर्गुमेंट दिया था, वही सही निकला. अभी अग्निपथ लेकर, ये बिल नहीं है. दूसरा बात, अग्निपथ लेकर सारा देश में इतना धरना प्रदर्शन हो रहा है, ये आपस नहीं ले रहा है, लेकिन आखिर में ये भी आपस लेना होगा. तो ये लोग कंसेंसस का बात जरूर कहते हैं, लेकिन करते नहीं. और अभी तक ये 17 लोकसभा का 3 पार्लियामेंट बजट सेशन किया. तीनों बजट सेशन आप अगर देखेगा, तीनों बजट सेशन जो कैलेंडर था वो आखिरी दिन का बहुत पहले ही तीनों सेशन खत्म किया था. तो ये लोग डिस्कशन नहीं चाहते हैं. अपना जो एजेंडा में जो बिल है वो पास होने से ही वो पास कर लेते हैं. सिर्फ यही नहीं, जो राष्ट्रपति का कैंडिडेट, प्रेसिडेंट का कैंडिडेट, वो कॉन्सेंसस का बारे में जरूर बोला, लेकिन नाम आगे नहीं रखा. और जैसे सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो जजमेंट आते हैं, जब ट्रिपल तलाक का जजमेंट आया, वो लोग तुरंत कानून लेके आए, ठीक है, मुस्लिम वुमेन को एम्पावर का, ठीक है. जब सबरीमाला लेकर जजमेंट आया, तब गृह मंत्री, देश का गृह मंत्री दूसरा बात बोला, तब वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट को कानून रिव्यू करना पड़ा. तो ये अगर आप कानून को रेस्पेक्ट करोगे, तब सब कानून को, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो भी जजमेंट आते हैं, वही जजमेंट को आप रेस्पेक्ट करना होगा. लेकिन आपका पक्ष में जो जाएगा उसको आप रेस्पेक्ट करेगा, उनको लेकर आप कानून लेके आएगा. जब महाराष्ट्र को लेकर कोई जजमेंट आएगा उसका आप स्वागत करेगा, और वो जजमेंट में स्पीकर का जो पावर है उसको भी कार्टेल करेगा, तब तो भी स्वागत करेगा, उसको प्रेज करेगा. और जब नुपुर शर्मा लेकर कोई ऑब्जर्वेशन आएगा सुप्रीम कोर्ट, तब देश का कानून मंत्री, दूसरे कोई मंत्री ना हो, देश का कानून मंत्री जब बोलेगा आई हैव स्ट्रॉन्ग ऑब्जर्वेशन, स्ट्रॉन्ग रिजर्वेशन, तब क्या होगा? इसीलिए जब आप कंसेंसस के बारे में बोलेगा, कंसेंसस का ज्यादा जिम्मेवारी है सत्ता पक्ष का, विपक्ष का नहीं. विपक्ष जरूर सहयोग करेगा, लेकिन सत्ता पक्ष का जरूरत ज्यादा है. अभी जो आर्टिकल 370 एब्रोगेशन, इतना जल्द में ये बिल पास किया, अभी क्या हुआ कश्मीर में? जम्मू एंड कश्मीर पहले जैसा जो हालत था उससे ज्यादा खराब हो गया.
You make a very important point, and his argument is because there isn't enough discussion.
एक सेकंड राहुल जी, और ये CAA सिटीजनशिप अमेंडमेंट एक्ट जो 2019 का कानून पास कर दिया, बिल से कानून हो गया, लेकिन अभी तक रूल ही नहीं बना पाया. अभी कितना लोग अफगानिस्तान से जो आया था, पाकिस्तान से आया था जो हिंदू, वो चला गया. यहां उन लोग को सिटीजनशिप नहीं मिला. आपका इतना प्रेम है, आप इतना चाहते हैं, लेकिन अभी तक रूल नहीं बना पाया. तो इतना जल्दबाजी का क्या जरूरत?
Because you're pushing things through in a hurry. जल्दबाजी में push कर रहे हो, which is why you have to take the law back. If I look at the data, the number of bills pushed through by an ordinance in the first term of the second NDA government was 76, much more than the number of bills pushed through between 2004 to 2014. So what they didn't do in 10 years, you've done much more than that in just 5 years.
I think we need compliment for that. We need a pat on our back. And it's a collective responsibility, I must say. We have to take the nation forward. We are not just here to run the government. Now here, I would just request for a few more minutes to me. 3 very solid, concrete examples I would like to put forth. Number 1, the GST bill, which became an act, passed in April-May 2017. And let me tell you, all of us are aware, I would be reiterating that before we brought the GST thing to the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, there was tremendous homework done by the BJP government and the central government. 2 years of very hard work we had put in. We had talked to all the stakeholders all along, and then we brought it, number 1. Number 2, let's talk about the farm laws. I don't have to look into my papers, or rather these things are at my fingertips. I remember, these people kind of created unnecessary law and order problems in the country. Remember the Lal Killa thing which had happened. Remember the Shaheen Bagh incident post-CAA. All these things had happened, but let me tell you about the farm laws. Now, December 2000, there was an inter-ministerial task force that had been created. Now, July 2001, again, there was a small group of ministers which had been created, and they were working on it. Then I will talk of 2010. There was a group of four chief ministers which had been set up. It was headed by the Haryana chief minister, West Bengal, Bihar and Assam. These chief ministers were also members. What I'm trying to tell you is, there has been a lot of deliberation, discussion, consultation. So to say that, homework has not been done, we have not been consulted, these are far from the truth. And I must say with all confidence, all conviction, that there is anti-growth and anti-India agenda. There are sinister designs. Many of these people we would not like to name have their own viewpoints, and they want to kind of halt the progress of Prime Minister Modi.
Okay, Sukhendu da?
देश आगे जाइए, ये हम लोग सब चाहते हैं. लेकिन अगर जो C-double है, इतना जरूरत था, अभी तक रूल क्यों नहीं बने? अभी तक जो माइनॉरिटीज वहां से आया, हम लोग खिलाफ तो बात अलग है, उसको क्यों नागरिकता नहीं मिले? ये जवाब दीजिए.
Since GST has been mentioned.
No, she says that we are proud of the fact that we are moving with speed because the UPA government was death by committee, governance by committee. We take decisions, we bring ordinance, we move with speed and purpose.
This is far from truth, because GST was introduced by Mr. Pranab Mukherjee when he was the finance minister in the UPA government. At that point of time, BJP opposed the GST, including the then Chief Minister of Gujarat. And when it came, it was brought by the present dispensation. Then most of the opposition parties, they supported, they suggested, accepting those states which are manufacturing states. Apart from them, all other opposition parties, they participated in the debate, they supported the government stand. So this consensus building, it is not a one-way traffic, as I told. Secondly, one is to realize that our democratic system is a participatory democratic system. People participate in this democracy through their representatives. The way the ruling party members are elected, the same way the opposition party members are also elected. Therefore, the opposition must get space to represent the people in a manner.
Okay. Pradyut Bordoloi, respond to her charge. Your government was death and governance by committee. They are action-oriented, unlike the Manmohan government.
I just want to tell you, certain principles have been enshrined in the constituency, in the constitution. You see, the Rajya Sabha, I just want to give you one example of the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha, the institution is there as a part of the check and balances of the brute majority. I want to give you two examples. the Rajya Sabha is always supposed to work. That is there in the constitution as a conscience keeper of the country. In a way, see, even if there is a brute majority in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha works in different manner. I just want to give you two examples. The 42nd Amendment of the Constitution. That was about, when the Janata Party came to power in India after 1977. They wanted to repeal the Emergency Act and they moved the 42nd Amendment. Janata Party in 1977 had the brute majority that time, 2/3 majority in the Lok Sabha, but they couldn't pass it in the Rajya Sabha because Rajya Sabha members were, opposition members were bigger number. Same thing when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. Rajiv Gandhi government has the largest ever majority in the Lok Sabha. But late Rajiv Gandhi tried to amend the Panchayati Act, 64th Amendment, which was also not allowed to be passed by the Rajya Sabha. And in both the occasions, the presiding officer of the Rajya Sabha actually worked in such a impartial manner that unlike this time, just I want to give you one example. Aparajita ji is talking about bill, farm laws. Farm laws, there's a provision under Rule 252 of the rules of the parliament that any member, because there's a very popular device taken by the presiding officers, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, is a voice vote. Now in Rajya Sabha, when the farm bill was being discussed, the presiding officer insisted that there will be voice vote. There were innumerable, about 10 to 20 members raised that there should be a division. But presiding officer just bulldozed him. There was no division. And as per the constitution, even if a single member asks for division, the presiding officer is supposed to do the division of the votes. But they too are steamrolled.
So presiding officers are acting in a biased fashion.
Absolutely. And
I have a point to make.
No,
Yes.
and another thing I just want to
Regarding
tell
rules,
you,
regarding
I wanted
rules.
to think that, see, if you want to really build a consensus, I have a suggestion. Take the example of Nilam Sanjeeva Reddy. When he became the speaker of the 4th Lok Sabha, the first thing he did, he was a very veteran member of the Congress party. He disassociated himself from the Congress party, 34 years association with the Congress party. So the moment he became the speaker of the Lok Sabha, he resigned from the Congress party. Why? Because the presiding officer has to be impartial.
Okay.
In
Aparajita,
I have a point
Yes,
to
I-
make regarding rules of Rajya Sabha. Only one point, that these rules have become archaic rules. You see, it requires amendment, thorough amendment, because there is a provision in the rules that sub judice matters cannot be discussed in the House. How come? For example, Pegasus. Pegasus was being discussed in several quarters, including the print media, electronic media, social and anti-social media, everywhere. But the parliament was debarred from discussing because there is a provision that sub judice matter cannot be discussed. This must be thrown out. This is an attack on the sovereignty of parliament, this type of rule. Therefore, the opposition space is being curtailed by such type of archaic rules also.
final words, Aparajita.
Prime Minister Modi's government is strong, decisive and fast, and I think it is our responsibility to help this government, and I would solicit support of all. Having said this, just give me 30 seconds, I'll put forth an example. In fact, I always say that there should be content, there should be facts, there should be figures. As far as the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Bill 2019 is concerned, there was indeed a voting. When there was a lot of uproar, 3-4 days we had debated, everybody's views were taken. Then there was, I remember, there was voting both in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, and I have the figures, my dear friends, here. Now, as far as the Lok Sabha is concerned, there were 351 votes in favor and 72 against, and 1 abstained. And as far as Rajya Sabha is concerned, 125 votes in favor, 61 against, and 1 abstained. So to say that we are not listening to our fellow members, to say that we do not build consensus, this is far from the truth. Wherever they have wanted division, we have gone for division, we have allowed division. Thank you.
जम्मू कश्मीर में जरूर वोटिंग में तो पास हुआ, लेकिन मैं जो कहा था कॉन्सेंसस कहाँ हुआ? कॉन्सेंसस इसलिए चाहिए ताकि देश का भला हो। अभी तक तो कश्मीर में नॉर्मलसी नहीं आया, तो जल्दबाजी में जो करते हैं वो देश के भला नहीं होते।
There are many things actually that you are trying to bulldoze the democratic provisions of the Constitution. See, I'm talking about again that those laws or those bills that touch the lives of the common people across the country, even those bills are also steamrolled, bulldozed. Take the, this route, money bill route. We all know the money bill route. You take the money bill route to avoid the discussion, especially in the Rajya Sabha.
Okay, so we will need to conclude over here. The speakers for our next sessions are here, but we've had an interesting conversation and I can see why it is so difficult to try and build consensus on the floor of the House. Prajita Sarangi, Sukhendu Dada, Abdul Bhai and Pradyut Bordoloi for joining us at the India Today Conclave East. Thank you so much. Thank you. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.